live video. Just wave at me if you are online. Maybe I should be scheduling the time. I know that we are all busy. Anyway, today we are going to be looking at a very interesting topic: creating body measurement charts for children. I just wait for one or two persons to join online and then we can start. Okay. All right, we just start. As you come in, you can just join and flow. Okay. So today, like I said, we're going to be looking at a very interesting topic, which is children body measurement charts. Okay. So there are some things that you need to know. You need to know when creating children's body measurement chart. There are some calculations you need to make, okay, before you can create one. I'm going to be going to the board. I already have a chart that I created. I'm going to be explaining how I came about the chart. And also, I'm going to be explaining some basic calculation you need to know to create your own chart. One thing you need to know about the body measurement chart is that it varies with children. Okay, so if you have the child in front of you, the customer, it's always good to measure her, okay, and then make her dress accordingly. However, if you are not able to get the customer in front of you, or you want to make a ready to wear clothes, then you can use the chart as a guide, because children of different ages, like 5 years old children, if you bring a group of children under 5 years, you are going to see that their measurements have a slight difference because of their growth, body structure differ. Okay, 5 years old children may have different body measurements. Okay, however, this is just a guide. Okay, but if you understand the basis, then you can always adjust your measurement to suit what you want, and you can always create your own charts that will work with you based on the children, the customers that you are always working with. Okay, so let's go to the board. Let me just explain some basic formulas you need to know, and then we will take a look at the charts. So this is just a sample of a children clothes. It can come in this form, and it can also come in the form of an A line like this. So whichever form it comes, the same shoulder, neck, armhole depth, and so on still applies. Okay, so when we say full shoulder, we mean the distance between one shoulder and another shoulder. So the distance between here and here is what we call full shoulder. SH is an abbreviation for shoulder. Okay, and then when we say neck width, the neck width, the base of the neck here, the distance between here and here, is the neck width. That is the neck width. Now, to get the neck width, we have a formula that we usually use. Neck width, you can use the chest circumference divided by 12, and then you can add allowance as you deem fit. Okay, another way to determine the neck width is also based on the style you are making. Okay, however, we have a basics that you can follow. Okay, so from here to here is our neck width, and then from here to here is the shoulder width. Shoulder width, that would be the shoulder width. Okay, so these are some basic things you need to know before we go into the chart. Now, when we say the armhole depth is different from armhole length. The armhole depth from the shoulder here to this point before you make the curve. This part is the armhole depth. AHD for short. Armhole depth. And then when you have this point from the shoulder down to this curve, that is the armhole length. Armhole length. Armhole length. The way you determine the armhole depth is different from the way you determine the armhole length. Okay? For the armhole depth, if you already know the full shoulder, you can use full shoulder divided by 2, and it will give you the armhole depth. Full shoulder divided by 2. Or you can also use the chest line, the chest circumference divided by 4, and then you subtract 1. Chest circumference divided by 4 minus 1. Chest circumference divided by 4 minus 1. And also in some cases, you can also use the chest circumference divided by 6, and then you add 0.75. So these are the 3 formulas that can help you to get the armhole depth. So the simplest among the 3 is just to use the full shoulder. So if you want to make for a baby girl, you already know the child's full shoulder. Just divide the full shoulder by 2, and then you have your armhole depth. If you don't want to use that, then you can use the child's chest circumference divided by 4, then you subtract 1. Okay, slightly below the curve is the chest line. So from here, this point is the chest line. Okay, this is where you have the chest line. And then for some clothes, you may want to add a dart. Okay, you may want to add a dart. Now, for the armhole length, how do you determine the armhole length? Armhole length. Most times to determine the armhole length, you just divide the chest circumference, you divide it by 4, and that will give you the armhole length. And then in some cases, you may need to add 0.5 inch seam allowance, because the child's clothes is supposed to have a little bit of freeness. So this is what you need to determine the armhole length. Chest divided by 4. Okay, but for the armhole depth, when you divide the chest by 4, you have to subtract 1, and that will give you the armhole depth. So those are the 2 differences between the armhole depth and the armhole length. Now, another thing we need to know on these bodies is the dart. If you want to add a dart, how do you know the amount of dart to add? Okay, now the dart, we usually refer to the dart as the chest span, just like we have bust span for adults. For children, we have chest span. Chest span. That is the distance from here, this point to this point. So this is the chest span. Okay, and to get the chest span of a child, you use the chest circumference, you divide it by 8, and then you subtract 0.75. If you have the chest circumference of the child, divide it by 8, and then you subtract 0.75. For example, if you have a chest of 21, you divide 21 by 8. The answer, you subtract 0.75 from it. 21 divided by 8 will give you 2.625. Then you now say minus 0.75. And that will give us 1.875. So this is the dart you are going to take. This is unfold. So you can approximate it to 1/8 or 1.9. Okay, and then when you mark this on your fabric unfold, you need to add seam allowance to it. Okay, that will help you to add that to the dress of the child. Another thing we need to know in this diagram again is the bodies. When we say the bodies is from the shoulder to the waistline. Shoulder to the waistline is the bodies of the dress. So bodies is shoulder to waistline. Okay, now to get the distance from this shoulder to the waistline, you can, if you know the full shoulder is just equal to the bodies. Okay, so if you already know the shoulder of the child, assuming the shoulder is 9 inches, then the bodies of the dress will also be 9 inches. Okay, so full shoulder is equal to bodies. To get bodies, simply use the full shoulder. Okay, that will give you the bodies of the dress. And then we have this other part of the dress, you can call it the skirt part. And then for children clothing, we have the dress length. When we say the dress length is from the shoulder to the knee. The shoulder to the knee, or wherever you want the dress to stop, that is the dress length, DL. For this chart today, the dress length is stopping at the knee. So when we're talking about the dress length, we're talking about from the shoulder to the knee line. That is what we are talking about. The shoulder to the knee line. So having understood the simple things, now let's go over to the chart. I have a chart that I already prepared. Sorry, I'm just trying to see. Okay, maybe we just shift it as we go. Okay, this is children's body measurement chart. It is in inches. The chart is in inches. Okay, I'm going to explain how I derived this chart. So the ages I'm working with on this chart, sorry, all right, the ages I'm working with on this chart is ages 2 to 10. So that is not to say you cannot make more than that. You can always adjust more than that. But I just decided to stop at age 10. And then on this point, we are going to be looking at the full shoulder, the neck width on fold. Remember, when we are cutting our fabric, we always put our fabric on fold. So when you fold your fabric into 2, the size of the neck, that is what we mean by neck width on fold. And then we have the shoulder width. I already explained what the shoulder width is. The armhole depth, the chest circumference, the waist circumference, and then the hip line. Then we have the bodies. The bodies, I already explained that the bodies is the shoulder to the waistline. And then we have the dress length. The dress length is from the shoulder to the knee. Shoulder to the knee. Now, there's one interesting thing to know about this measurement. For full shoulder, there's always an increase of 0.5 inches or half inch. Okay, so for a child of age 2, the full shoulder is 8.5. And then to get the next age, which is 3 years, you just add half inch to that, and that will give you 9 inches. For 4 years, just add half inch, that will give you 9.5. Add half inch again, and you have 10. We just continue like that, to get the full shoulder. So as the ages progress, we are adding half inch to the measurement. So that means for these 10 years now, we have 12.5. It means for 11 years, just add half inch to 12.5, and then you have 13. And then for 12 years, just add half inch to that, and then you have 13 and a half. So that is one thing to note about the chart. Okay, there's an increase of half inch. And then for the neck width unfold, remember this is our neck unfold. For the neck width, there is an increase of quarter of an inch. Increase of quarter of an inch. Quarter is written as 0.25. Okay, so for a 2 years old child, the neck width unfold is 2 inches. And then to get the next year, for 3 years, just add quarter to that and you have 2 1/4. Okay, the neck width does not really increase so much like that. Okay, another thing is that the neck width is dependent on the style you are making for the child. So a child of 3 years and a child of 4 years, for example, you can use a neck width of 2 1/4 for them. That is 2.25. You can use 2.25 for them. And then for a child of 5 to 7 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, you can now use 2.5 inches for their neck width. And then for 8 years, you now add quarter to that 2.5, and then you have 2.75. So for children of 8 and 9 years, you can actually use 2.75 for them. And then for a child of 10 to 12 years, you can use 3 inches as the neck width. Okay, so the next thing I want to look at now is the shoulder width. I already explained the shoulder width. When making children's clothing, especially for clothes that are sleeveless, the shoulder width does not need to be too wide. Okay, so for a 2 years old child, you can use 1.75 as the shoulder width. Now the shoulder width, you can increase the shoulder width by 1/8. You can increase it by 1/8. So that means if a 2 years old child is 1.75, a 3 years old child, just add 1/8 to that and you have 1.8. I hope we know how to read our tape. We know how to read our tape. This is 1.7. This is 1.75. Okay, for a 2 years old child, you use 1.75. For a 3 years old, you just increase it by 1/8 and just go to the next. For the next age, you just increase again by the next. Okay, now the next will now be 2 inches. For the next year, you can just increase it again by another 1/8. You just be moving it small, okay, or according to the style you are sewing. So that is how to do the neck width. So you find that the neck width is increasing by 1/8. 4 years old will be 2 inches unfold, 2 inches wide. 5 years old will be 2.18. 5 years old will be 2.18. 6 years old, 2 1/4. 7 years, 2 1/2. 8 years, 2 3/4. And 9 years, you can also use the same 2 3/4. And then for 10 years, you now use 3 inches, or according to preference. And then for the armhole depth, there's an interesting thing about the armhole depth. The armhole depth of various ages, they usually increase by quarter. There's an increase by quarter, just like full shoulder. Full shoulder is increasing by half inch, but armhole depth is increasing by quarter. So for a 2 years old child, the armhole depth is 4.25. And how do we get the 4.25? I already explained that if you have your full shoulder, you can divide full shoulder by 2, and that will give you the armhole depth. So for a child of 2 years, the full shoulder is 8.5. When we divide 8.5 by 2, we have 4.25. Okay, and then for the next year, which is 3 years, just add quarter to this 4.25, then you have 4.5. Then for 4 years, add quarter to this, you have this. Add quarter to this, you have this. That is how it is increasing. Also, if you don't want to use that, you can also use their full shoulder measurement. 3 years, the full shoulder is 9. If you divide 9 by 2, you will have 4.5. 4 years, full shoulder is 9.5. If you divide that by 2, you will have 4.75. 5 years, the full shoulder is 10. If you divide that by 2, you are going to have 5. So that is how it will be increasing. So if you check the difference, you see that the difference that we have in between them is 0.25. So with that, you'll be able to create your own chart. And then for the chest circumference, one thing about the chest circumference is that the chest circumference, there's a progressive increase of 1 inch. A child of 2 years, the chest circumference is 21. 3 years, 22. 4 years, 23. It will just be increasing like that with 1 inch added to it. 5 years, 24. 6 years, 25. 7 years, 26, and so on. Okay? And then for the waist circumference, the same thing applies until it gets to a certain age. You find out that there is a difference or a change. For the waist circumference, a 2 years old waist circumference is 20. 3 years, 21. 4 years, 22. 5 years, 23. 6 years, 24. At age 7, you now see the waist measurement fluctuating between 23 and 24. And then for age 8, you see it fluctuating between 24 and 25 inches. And then for a 9 years old, the waist circumference will be around 25 inches. And then for a 10 years old, 26 inches. That means for a 11 years old, you just add 1 inch to that. That will be 27. And then for 12 years old, add 1 inch to that. That will be 28. Okay, so the next one I want to look at is the hip line. So the same thing that applies to the waistline also applies to the hip line. There's a progressive increase, and then there's a progressive increase like the chest. 2 years old, 22. 3 years, 23. The next 24, 25, 26. It will just be increasing like that. But for some children, it may vary, okay? Do well to measure your child, but this is just a guide. So the next thing we want to look at on the chart is the bodice. I've explained that the bodice is from the shoulder to the waistline. And one interesting thing about the bodice of a child's dress is that the bodice length is the same thing as the full shoulder. A 2 years old child, the bodice length, you can use the full shoulder, which is 8 and 8.5, or you can decide to make use of 8. Okay, a 3 years old has a full shoulder of 9. The bodice will also be 9. 4 years has a full shoulder of 9.5. You also use the same thing as the bodice, which is 9.5. So the same thing, the full shoulder of the child also serve as the bodice length. Okay, it also serve as the bodice length. And then the next one is the last but not the least that we're going to be looking at today is the dress length. The dress length we are looking at in this case is from the shoulder to the knee. If you want yours to be longer than that, then you can always adjust based on the measurements that you are, based on the style you are working with. But the dress length we are looking at today is from the shoulder to the knee. And there's an interesting thing about it is that there's always an increase of 2 inches. So for example, a 2 years old dress length is 20. A 3 years old is 22. A 4 years old, 24. You just add to that. 5 years old, 26. Then again, when it gets to age 6 and 7, you see that there is a little difference. Sometimes you will have 27. Sometimes you may have to make use of 28. Okay? And then for a 7 years old child, the dress length is 28 inches. And then for 8 years old child, just add 2 inches to that. That will give you 30. 9 years old 32. 10 years 34. So that means for 11 years you'll be making use of 36. Okay, so that is how you make your adjustment. Again, I started my chart with 2 years. So from this explanation now, you can start yours from 1 year or even in the months. So if you want to go for 1 year, for example, since you already know that a 2 years old child, the full shoulder is 8.5, and you know that there is an increase of 0.5, it means that if you want to have a 1 year old, just subtract 0.5 from this 8.5, and that will give you 8. So for a 1 year old, you will make use of 8. Okay, the neck width, we already said that there's an increase of quarter. If 2 is 2 inches, just subtract quarter from 2 years and you have 1/3 for the 1 years old. So you have 1/3. Okay, full shoulder for 1 year, you have 8 inches. And then for the shoulder width, the same thing. Subtract 1/8 from 1.75, and then you have the shoulder width of a 1-year-old. The armhole depth of a 1-year-old, the one for a 2 years old is 4.25, and we already explained that there's an increase of quarter. So just subtract quarter. That means the armhole depth of a 1-year-old will be 4 inches. And then the chest circumference, if a 2-year-old is 21, subtract 1, that will give you the chest circumference of a 1-year-old. So a 1-year-old will be 20. If the waist circumference of a 2-year-old is 20, subtract 1 inch, that means a 1-year-old will be 19. The same thing for the hip line. If the hip of a 2-year-old is 22, subtract 1, and that will give you 21 for a 1-year-old. And then if the body's length for the 1-year-old, you use the same thing that you use for the full shoulder as the body's length. A 1-year-old will use 8 inches as the full shoulder. It means that the body's length for a 1-year-old will also be 8. And then the dress length for a 2-year-old is 20. I already said that there's an increase of 2 inches. So to get the one of 1 year, just subtract 2 from 20, and that will give you 18. So that is how to create body measurement chart for children. So this is where we are going to be stopping the video for today. I hope you find these tutorials helpful. So let me know what you think about these tutorials in the comment section below. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, like my video, share my video, and please subscribe to my channel if you are yet to subscribe, so that you can be having more of these amazing tutorials. Now, if there is anything that you also want me to teach on, you can suggest it as well. This is actually a subscriber's request, Kate. Thank you very, very much, Kate. I am fine, and I hope you are fine too. So this is where I'm going to be calling it a day. I remain G-Joy or Joidala. So until next time when I come your way again, I will say bye-bye. Let me know what you think about the charts in the comment section below. Okay? Bye.